In this video, we're going to be ranking all of the rank 1 War Thunder Mobile platoons. If this video does well, then I'll come back later and do all the vehicles individually. But for that, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. So first is the French M4A4 platoon. I think this one is pretty good. I'm going to do this on a scale of 1 to 10. I think the M4 is, it's your standard M4 that you have. Performs mostly like the others. The shining diamond of this platoon, though, I'd say is the AMX-13 or the AMX-13 FL-11 here, because unlike other vehicles in this platoon, it has smoke, which is very good, and it's one of the very few, I don't think there are any other vehicles in rank 1 that have smoke. So because of that, I think this platoon's really good. I'd say it's about an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. Next is one of the actual platoons you can start with, the Panzer IV. And the Panzer IV F2, I think, is one of the really good penetrating tanks, but it's not really good armor-wise. And that's more or less because of the enemies you're going up against. They have a high enough caliber to go through your armor. But the other vehicles in this platoon should be accounted for as well. The SPAA, which I don't remember the name of at this moment, is also really nice. The Panzer IIIL is also really good in this platoon. But the other Panzer IV that's in this platoon, which I think is the F1, the F1 isn't as good, but it does have access to heat shells. Overall, I'd say this is about 7, not necessarily bad, not necessarily the best. Next is the War Thunder Mobile specific M4 that you can get from playing the game. And you get it when you start the game up. It's in the promo section right here. So you just play a few matches, do whatever the task is. I don't exactly remember what it is, and you get the M4 platoon. This platoon's really good because it has the M10 in it, and the M10 has a really well-penetrating gun. Its armor isn't really there. It's kind of non-existent, but the gun on the M10 makes this platoon pretty good in itself. The SPAA is good. The M24 is decent. It's not really well armored, but it's good. And the M4 itself is pretty well armored. I think this one is even more armored than the French M4A4, so I'd say this platoon's probably a 9. Now, the starting M4A1 is very similar to the M4 platoon, which we just went over, but this M4A1 is a decent bit less armored than the red M4. But regardless of that, it's still pretty much the same platoon, just the main tank in it is a little under armored, and you'd still have to, level it up to unlock the other vehicles. So because of that, I'm going to lower it from a 9 to an 8 in comparison with the red M4 platoon. Now this platoon, the T-34 1940 platoon, is quite interesting. I believe that the M10 from the previous 2 platoons that we just talked about can penetrate pretty much most of the front armor of the T-34, especially this version. And that also goes for the T-28E, which isn't necessarily best armored, but both of them can kind of contend with the rest of the platoons that come up. The T-34s in this platoon, including the T-34 1941, which is in the back, is also pretty good. I would say that together they make up for the majority of how good this platoon is. The SPAA is kind of lackluster, and the T-28E isn't the best. So overall, I'd say this is about like a 6. It's not great, but if you want to choose it, you can choose it. And if you know how to play it and you play it well, you will perform well. But in my opinion, I'd say about 6. One we have, which very few people have, is the Churchill I platoon. This platoon has been notoriously known for being awful. Mainly the lack of armor on all other vehicles besides the Churchill, and the Churchill itself not being able to penetrate the majority of tanks it goes up against. I'd say this platoon is not something you'd want to really use in a battle, but it's kind of good as a trophy piece. So in that regard, it's not necessarily the best. So right away, I'm going to give this like a 4. It could be better if 1 or 2 of the vehicles were swapped out. The SPAA is fine, but the Sherman II and the Cromwell 5 don't really make up for the lack of firepower that the Churchill I has, even though the Sherman II does have APCR rounds. Or at least I think it has APCR rounds. Don't exactly take my word on that, but from what I know, this platoon could be better, but it's not quite there. So, a 4. The final platoon on this list, the KV-2 1940, this platoon is really good, but at the same time, it's kind of a paper tiger. So overall, the idea of the KV-2 is great. It has really strong armor. Its gun can destroy the majority of the things that's going to go up against. However, it has a glaring weak spot that not all players exactly know about. I think I'm going to show it right here, but this section of the KV-2's turret is pretty weak and can be shot through by the majority of tanks that you're going up against. And then, of course, the lower hull bit, I'm not exactly sure about this, but I know in the higher ranks that this part of the hull is easily penetrated by other vehicles. For example, in the rank 3 platoon with the KV-1E, that place is commonly used as a place to go through on the KV-1 if it's not hull down. So that's my point on that. The KV-2 on its own is pretty good, but with the addition of the T-34s and the T-34E especially, this platoon is really, like, it's just amazing. And the SPAA is really good. In comparison with the other platoons, I'd say this is about a 8 out of 10, where it's pretty good. There's some improvements that could be made, and there is some vulnerabilities on their best vehicle, but you're going to have that with any vehicle anyway, so just to point those out for those who are struggling to fight against this vehicle. Anyway, that's going to be all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. See you guys in the next one.